meeting at 6 p.m. If you could all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Let the record show all members of the committee are present, Councilman Evans, and myself, Chairwoman Holly Swank. Also present is Council President Jason Jacobs, Councilman Dennis Boos, Councilman Clifford Winkle, Councilwoman Georgia Awig, Law Director Brian Moriarty, Mayor Kevin Corcoran, and Assistant Clerk of Council Hijabi Galam. For you have the Safety Committee meeting minutes of July 11th, 2022. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, the minutes stand approved. So at this time, we will open the lobby session for discussion. You have 3 minutes to speak on the topic if you would like to. Is there anybody who would like to join our lobby session? Hearing none, lobby session is closed. So tonight we're here to discuss the following: T4-2023, an ordinance creating North Ridgeville Codified Ordinance Chapter 478, regulating the operation of low-speed and underspeed vehicles. This is introduced by myself and resident Kim Nakoff. So as far as an overview of the legislation, I kind of wanted to discuss the purpose of it. So we have a picture of it. So this is a modified golf cart, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And the constituent reached out to me because we have nothing on the books as far as if they're allowed, if they're not allowed, if we can even have these things on our residential streets. But I thought it was an interesting topic. It's pretty cool. It's got brake lights, it's got rear view mirrors, it's got turn signals. But at any point, I wanted to see if there was anybody on the committee that had any questions or concerns or conversations.
Madam Chairperson, question I would have is, does the state of Ohio, do they have laws regulating these things as well?
They do.
Yes.
Did a portion of the ordinance come from that?
Yes, it was, let's see. 4.5 Ohio Revised Code Section 4511.214, operation of low speed, underspeed, or utility vehicles. And that's where this comes from. And then there's another provision in the revised code that gives local municipalities the ability to adopt their own resolutions or ordinances pertaining to those.
Are we making any major modifications to the Ohio statutes?
The only modification that I think we put in there was that you would not be able to cross streets that are 35 miles an hour or more. That it was always restricted to 25-mile-an-hour areas.
Any other questions?
I think the most important part of section B, basically you gotta be 16 years old and you have to have a driver's license. That pretty much covers it, I think. I mean, down south in Florida, they're everywhere, you know, and they're becoming more and more prominent in our new developments. People are starting to get them, so.
Well, and I feel like they drive into their swimming pool from their HOA, yeah, because I've seen them. Any other comments or questions from the committee? And how about the administration?
Yeah, I spoke to Chief Freeman this morning about this, and he had a few comments. You know, golf carts are not the only vehicle that's permitted by this ordinance, just so you know. I mean, that's the most common example, but there are others that could be used under this ordinance as well. So, you know, a couple of his main comments were that people are driving faster than ever. You know, I know that we continuously get complaints that people are driving extremely fast in neighborhoods where it is 25 miles an hour. You know, you hear that all the time from the residents of Avalon. So despite, you know, restricting this to those areas, people are still driving fast. From his perspective, these vehicles are less safe because they're lacking certain safety protections that regular vehicles have. For example, there's nothing on the side to prevent, to basically prevent people from dying in a T-bone accident. He mentioned it's just lacking a lot of those safety provisions. Those vehicles are not crash rated. They tip over easy. And he wanted to point out that there's a big difference between like an Avalon, a Pitts, a Del Webb. Those are, all 25-mile-an-hour streets. And these vehicles would be able to go on all of those. And so he was concerned about that. He says it's one thing for, the Del Webb community to drive it to their pool. It's another for people to drive it around neighborhoods. And he said, like imagine that kids are driving them to school. And, if they're going to Pitts or live in that area, they could drive their, low speed vehicle to school. And he's concerned about that. He's also concerned about the idea that, 16 and older, that the younger kids would just be driving these around all over the place. As long as they're legal and as long as they're staying under 25 miles an hour, then they're legal. He said it doesn't prevent, kids from goofing off and creating accidents. We don't allow 16-year-olds to drive cars without parent supervision or adult supervision. But in this instance, we would let people drive these. So that was another concern of his. And he just wanted to point out that we're a city of about 800 crashes annually. And he would just expect that number to go up if these vehicles were permitted on the roadways. So he wasn't really sure, why this was necessary. I understand that, there's been a request, but,
But they're not illegal in the city?
right now they are, yes. Yeah, this Ohio Revised Code requires us to take action in order to make them legal. So right now they are illegal. That's the whole intent of that Ohio Revised Code. It says the local jurisdiction has to do something to permit them to be there. Outside of that, they are not permitted. Just like the fireworks law kind of.
Right. And we can actually extend the age.
You can change it as, as you wish.
Pardon me,
You can make it more restrictive. You can't make it less.
pardon me, 16-year-olds can still get a driver's license without somebody sitting next to them, correct?
I think, isn't it a learner's permit or whether it's
15
driver,
now.
15 and a half, yeah,
but they can't drive on their own at 16, can they?
if they get a driver's license.
Really?
Yeah.
Must have missed that one.
I thought maybe something changed and I wasn't aware.
Not considered, oh, they changed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Some of us kids, they used to have mopeds.
What's that?
We're gonna drive you home.
That's right.
Are there any other members of council that would like to have any questions or comments?
Madam Chairman, Chairperson. I used to, in my former life, I worked with a dealer that sold and serviced these types of vehicles. They're in Painesville, Ohio. And most of the use of these were for lake communities, campgrounds, large factories, places that they didn't use city streets. They used either they were a development of their own that the streets, didn't belong to the city. So they take care of them. So I had some of the same concerns that the police chief had mentioned. through the mayor's comments. I think that there's a level of residents that would utilize this. One, I just met the woman who helped bring this legislation forward earlier, and she has everything backed up. I mean, she meets all of the dots on the board, seems very responsible, but we're not talking one person, we're talking everybody. And, you know, one of the things that is in here is you have to have your vehicle reviewed by the police department and have a sticker on it. So now we have our police officers following golf cars to make sure that they have the sticker, you know, that has to be displayed supposedly on the back, I believe is where the sticker needs to be. So I have some of the same concerns for the safety of those in the golf cart, in addition to the safety of the others. I mean, probably one of the most common complaints that we as council people hear is speed in neighborhoods. You know, and the 25-mile-an-hour limits. And I can't imagine what happens when someone going 35 gets up behind one of these and doesn't know what to do because they haven't seen them before. They're not used to them. Other than that, the only other thing that is not listed under equipment, A1A, that we may want to consider is a speedometer. This car has one, but do they all? And so I think if you're going to be traveling on a city street, you should have the wherewithal to understand how fast you're going, even if it's less than 25 miles an hour. Thank you.
Any other members of council?
I'm not as familiar with the vehicles, but do they, I mean, what constitutes low speed? I mean, can yours, for example, only go 25? Is that the maximum speed that it can possibly go?
Maximum speed is 25.
And yours does have a speedometer?
Yes.
Mr. Longacre?
Yeah.
Is there a way to put in verbiage of low speed with a average solid mile per hour, along with adding a speedometer on that?
Yeah, I think
Like,
that'll
can we
be,
cap it, like you can only have a speed that tops at 25 miles an hour?
Does your vehicle have a governor on it that prevents it from going over 25?
No, it comes out of the factory that way. It's programmed to do no more than 25.
It's supposed to be governor.
You would have to, right?
Or
Because once you take that off, then you can exceed that speed. There's nothing that stops anybody from taking that off. It's always dangerous to create legislation for one person because there's a lot to consider. And I don't know that you think about the bigger, 36,000 people that live here. I just caution you when you go to do something like that because you're affecting a lot of people and not just the one person who's asking. I get that these things are all over the place. They're all over in Florida. They're all over in Georgia, Peachtree, Georgia. There's, Foot Bay. There's a lot of places, that have them, but,
Can I ask what the difference is between that and a motorcycle, which has no seat belts, literally no front, no back, no nothing. I mean, my husband can start up his Harley and drive right down the road, no problem.
yeah.
There's no safety on that. I mean, there's no, I mean,
I think that's-
it'd be safer to be hitting that than on a motorcycle.
I don't think so. I mean, there's not a whole lot of protection there.
Well,
There's no side to it. Yes, there's a front and a back. but-
There's 3-point seat belts. There's a DOT glass windshield. I mean, there's definitely a back bumper that there's also a metal thing on the front that keeps, there's a metal basket on the front. There's also a basket on the back, plus there's the, I don't know what they call it, but it goes around the entire front of the car, that metal piping there. I mean,
at the same time, you get into an accident with a car that T-bones this and the person's not wearing a seatbelt and goes through the windshield,
Well,
coming right through the middle of your golf cart and taking out all the people and at the same time. I mean, I don't wanna,
right,
you could go to extremes and talk about all the different pieces and parts. I just. There's a lot to consider here. And I don't know, just, like safety being the primary, goal of protecting not only the person in that vehicle, but also the people around there as well. For example, you see all the time, slow moving vehicles. I mean, the Amish, they're constantly getting hit by cars. And there's signs on them now, and I think there's even flashing lights on them, but they still get.
Not yet.
I think they're required to now, or
I
some
know
kind
they're
of
fighting it.
that's why there's a real legislation on this one to not be on roads that are over 25 miles per hour. So nobody should be doing 35, 40 anyways.
Except they do.
Well,
They do. That's the problem. We hear that all the time from Avalon.
Well, Avalon.
People are driving 40 miles an hour through there. And
Well, and we've had quite a few people wreck into parked cars that are even sitting there, and that's happened twice in the last 3 months.
Yeah, so how many times do we hear, like on Avalon, for example, people getting passed because they're going too slow?
Correct.
What do you think is gonna happen in that? They're gonna be passing them all the time.
I do have a question though. I don't live in an HOA, so I don't know the answer to this, but like Meadow Lakes has those big paths. Are they legal to drive on those?
No,
No,
And not sidewalks either?
can't drive on sidewalks.
Madam President, to the woman's point, a motorcycle, you need a special license for that. You need to, there's certain safety precautions or whatever in the test that you have to pass. So there is a difference between a motorcycle license and a driver's license.
Anybody else on the?
Yeah, one of the things that concerns me is they'll be limited to their neighborhoods, but I'll bet you $1 worth of donuts that you will see them on eventually, once it becomes popular. You'll see them on 83, you'll see them on Center Ridge, because somebody says, I'm just going a little way, so I can do that. And also you will have folks who, in my day and age, we called it souping them up, taking the governors off, getting them faster, whatever. I can understand though that they'd like to be able to use them within their own neighborhoods. I understand that too. But I also know that our police department doesn't necessarily enforce it anyway, so I'm not sure.
I kind of wonder though, if this is considered a low speed vehicle, can vehicles pass it? Is it
It's not
illegal?
can, they will.
they
Well,
will.
they will, but like
Yeah.
legally can they?
Yeah, you can pass any slow moving vehicle.
Well,
Unless we start adding double yellow lines everywhere.
They pass them with double yellow lines.
I know they do, but then
Somebody
it would
did
be
that in
illegal.
school though the other day.
Madam President. As I said earlier, this vehicle meets all the criteria that you're looking for. My concern is the 100 others that wouldn't, that, don't have the basket in front, that don't have the reinforced bumper, that don't have all of those things that this one does. This one probably works. But again, we're not legislating for just one. And safety is really, again, I keep going back to the gripes we hear about speeders, and I mean, not only Avalon, but in Ward 2, I hear them, they're doing it down Mildred, they're doing it down Baycox, they're doing it down Cornell. I mean, they're doing it all over the place. And you're talking sometimes 40, 45 miles an hour. And the police can't be everywhere. And my concern is having one of those come up behind one of these, not familiar with it, And, I don't know, I just think you're asking for some things to happen that we may not want. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
Madam Chair, I only have one comment really. If you look at A1A, O and P, infants and children, good way this is written right in these, even infants can. It would just be something I bring to committee's attention to consider if you're gonna modify something, worry about safety. That's the only thing that stuck out to me on this where, and I also hear everybody else say, my neighborhood, we're not supposed to drive go-karts around either. Well, they're all around. But that's the only comment I wanted to mention that, you know, any child could run in one of these with booster and car seats, I guess, if a regular car. I guess that'd be one difference between this and the motorcycle, but just for consideration. Thank you.
Madam Chairman. The only, I have two concerns, obviously. One is just the policing of this with all the things you guys mentioned about keeping stickers on each vehicle. If that's time consuming, who's gonna track it? You know, I think you get into that. And obviously officers have other things they should be doing that are a little more important, I think. And also I think it's about the environment. Like when I mentioned about being down south, I think the entire culture there is into understanding, hey, we're on golf carts, let's be safe. Or the campgrounds, they drive by each other, they wave, you know. Here, you're gonna get one or two people in a neighborhood like Pitts, as the mayor mentioned. And they're not gonna be waving, they're gonna be waving something else. They're gonna be blowing by cars at 35 miles an hour, because they do, they speed on Pitts Boulevard all the time. And I would just hate for something bad to happen, you know, in a vehicle like that, at that speed. I think that you're, you know, if the understanding was that our whole community or our HOA, we all have golf carts, we respect one another, we're safe, you know, that's different than when you have one or two people in a neighborhood that has them. You know, so I just think it's a level of acceptance amongst neighbors, and I just don't see that happening.
There's already several golf carts in my development. I mean, there are several people that own golf carts that drive them down the roads already. I mean, so they're already here, whether you want them or not. That's pretty much, you know, while we're talking about what's legal and what's not legal, they're already driving them down the street. You can get them, you can go to the Lorain County Sheriff and they will, for $25, they will look over your golf cart and give you the sticker. So, I mean.
That was the other question with the inspection. Are we attaching any kind of fee with them?
Yeah, it's $25.
Is that
Anybody else?
I was just gonna say, there are people in our development too, one or two, they have golf carts and one guy has a, like a tricycle that he rides at, be a slow through the vehicle as well. But I can understand the safety concerns if you put something like this into law, will there be people that are using it or, you know, will there be more accidents? I mean, it sounds very innocent upfront that it would be okay because it is allowed in many other communities elsewhere. But like she said, there are people that are doing it anyway, but illegally.
Right, they're doing it illegally, which is good. I wanted to bring it on the books so that it's no longer illegal because more and more people are going to buy them. You know, most of these things are run off batteries, not gas. So, I mean, it opens up the developments. I mean, when people go on vacation, they bring the golf carts with them. You know, I don't know if you know how much it is to rent a golf cart at Put-in-Bay, but my last 9-day trip to Put-in-Bay cost me $1,000 to rent a golf cart. So people buy them so they don't have to spend so much renting the golf carts. On the flip side, these things are very expensive. They're not cheap. This one was out the door. I think I paid $14,500 for it. So it's, you know, not necessarily accessible to everybody either. But more people are going to be buying these. You're going to see them more and more. And by keeping them on 25-mile-an-hour roads or less, the only time there could even be an issue with running into somebody who's going faster is by somebody who's breaking the law already. So.
Maybe it would cause people to slow down.
That would be nice, though.
Just a comment here, as far as safety is concerned, we have people riding bikes. And some moms, I don't know, I haven't seen it in my neighborhood, but a small neighborhood, have their kid in a seat on the back, over the back wheel, so would that be safer than the bicycle? I'm just throwing those comments out.
And to piggyback on that, my concern for safety would be if this vehicle was posing a risk to the people that were already on the road, that would be a concern. It seems like the conversation is more though that we're concerned about the safety of the person riding in this vehicle, where, like Bruce just pointed out, I mean, we already have people, anytime any one of us gets in a vehicle, whether it's our car, motorcycle, a bicycle, we're all kind of, taking on that risk by driving that vehicle. And I don't know that this really poses any greater danger to anybody than, like a motorcycle.
Well, I know somebody in North Ridgeville owns a two-fold, is that made by Mercedes-Benz? It's a little two-seater. It's actually smaller than that. And that's street legal.
I've seen that vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like.
My Mini
Also,
Cooper's smaller.
the Fiat that they sell. I think it's probably about the same size as that. I'm just exploring. I don't know, quite frankly.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
When you bought your slow speed vehicle, you said that it doesn't go over 25.
That's correct.
Is that how all of them are?
That's how they come out of the manufacturer.
Mhm.
So you would have to, know how to do something
Right,
like that.
right. But when you buy them, I mean, they don't have some that they can sell for 30 miles an hour
No,
or 35.
no, they're 25 and under. The club cars, I think, are 20.
That's regulated. That's, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, because it's interesting, in the statutes, they don't actually define what a slow speed vehicle is. It just says you can operate it, but it's got to be under 35 or 25. So, you might want to consider putting a definition of what a slow speed vehicle would be, or an under speed vehicle, whatever they call
I think that's in there.
it. I didn't see that.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll open it to the floor. If you want to have a comment or question, you can go to the podium and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Kimberly Nakoff. I'm at 37445 Tail Feather Drive in North Ridgeville. So basically, this car, I believe, has a lot more safety features than motorcycle or anything like that. I have, this one specifically has 3-point safety belts. They all come with seat belts. They all come, the street legal ones, there's certain definitions that the car has to meet in order to be street legal. So it has to have turn signals, it has to have brake lights, it has to have a windshield and a windshield wiper and turn signals and everything like that. So it has everything that a car would have. I mean, the sides are open, but it's still more sides than you would get on a motorcycle. And ideally, if it's only on 25-mile-an-hour roads, ideally people slow down a little bit. And we're talking about, somebody hitting this car, but I mean, if you could get them to slow down with the car, maybe they won't hit the little kid on the bicycle. In my development, I mean, there are just kids all over the road and, people need to slow down anyways, save a couple of lives. But yeah, there's certain definitions this thing needs to meet to become street legal. So I believe that with those definitions, with the blinkers and everything, we should be able to get this on the road at 25-mile-an-hour roads. So that's where I'm at with this.
I feel like this time we need to table it for further discussion. To talk about what Maury already brought up. Thoughts on
Second.
All right, move to table by Plank, seconded by Avens, to table for further discussion. With no further business before this committee, we'll have to roll call. So I made the motion to table it for further discussion, seconded by Bruce Avens. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Passed 3-2. No further business before this committee. The meeting is now adjourned. Can you send me pictures, please?
Yeah. I mean, do you want those? You can have those.